everybody can just try to find a new job. And that was like my first experience for the professional basketball. With this mindset, I'm always able to be happy or find the happiness, like you said, that there's always something, different things you can do. And it never comes kind of, it's really difficult to play in that sense, like a perfect game. There's always something that is not perfect. And to me, it's always been like I kind of zone out, and I don't even realize how many people there are. I just get into the game. And to a Finnish guy, it's like something, like very different. And then when I went to shoot the next day, and I still felt like, I'm just making every shot. And I kind of did, The body, mind, and the skill, and the combination of those. So we help the athletes and focus on them individually, but comprehensively. The limits that the mind and the society kind of puts on us, and this is something that we also want to fight against and show that it's very possible to get better, through your whole life.
Hey, it's Tommy from Surfer of Life, and today I'm sitting here with Samuel Haanpa, who is a professional basketball player. You have played in 3 different continents and also in the Finnish national team in the European Championships, and you are still playing in the first league in Finland. You are also an entrepreneur and a co-founder in Saha Training Company. Samuel, welcome to Surfer of Life.
Thank you, great to be here.
First of all, I'm really curious. I want to know that how does a over 2-meter guy fit in the Fiat 500?
Easily. It's a good car that even the big guys can drive it. And it was. I guess it was also the thing that I just had to fit it because there was the possibility that there was available. So you can do things when you kind of have to.
That's a good mentality for the things. I saw a picture of your Saha company car, so that's why I was thinking about it. But we're here to talk about basketball and also other issues and things around the sport and what's involved. But first of all, the first question is that why basketball?
I guess it comes from the family. My dad used to play. He was also playing on a high level, on a national team level. Then my both brothers, I have 2 older brothers, they both played, and so since I'm the youngest one, I was always around. I was in practices. My dad was coaching my older brother, and so I was always just going with them to the practice and hanging on the sidelines, just being around basketball. And I think that was kind of natural way just to get introduced to basketball.
What about the other sports? Do you have any other sports when you were a child?
Yeah, usually it was during the summer times. It was football or like they would say soccer here. And then we did a lot of other sports. I wasn't in a club teams or anything like that doing different sports, but like track and field was the usual one. Then I did it was like a cross country, like running. That was one thing, and then I played. My both brothers, they played hockey, so I was always there as a goalie, or they needed a goalie, and they got the youngest one to be the goalie. And so different sports, but I would say like basketball, soccer. Those were like the main ones that they split the year in half.
Do you think it's important as a child to have many different sports, multiple sports? Or because it seems like in early days nowadays people just focus on one sport particular. What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's more important like what you do in a specific sport because you can train, let's say I would only play basketball or the young kid would only play basketball and you can do it in many different ways. Like you can still practice a lot of different like motor skills or coordination. And the training can be very different even if you do only one sport. So it's easier and it comes more automatically if you have different sports and you get to train your body in a different way. You get different kind of skills, but I would still say it's possible even with one sport. Like I only had, you could say like two sports that I was competing in, but then at the same time I was doing a lot of um, exercises and exercising with my brothers, with my friends, and outside that team training. And I would say that's one of the things that these days, when everything seems to be like very professional and there's more emphasis on training and how to do things, um, then it seems that the only training you do it's just very like specific and it has to be very like sports oriented and a sports specific for the sport that you're training for. Uh, when I think before or when we were younger, I would see that we were exercising and doing sports like in a more variety, just outside the club sports, you would say, what we were doing.
You think in the club sports the coaches would be able to bring more inside the specific sport, as you said, like there could be some many variations of things that you do in a specific sport, let's say basketball or
Right.
soccer or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's already a lot of coaches who are doing that, and there's a lot of good programs that understood the importance of variability in training. But of course, I would think there's also the room for improvement. So yeah,
I guess you are working on that, but we're going to talk about
yeah.
that a little bit later. Uh, when did you realize that basketball is really your thing? Was it right at the beginning? Was it sort of your passion, or did it just develop itself? You said you had a family
Yeah.
history that everybody was playing.
Yeah, I would say more so it developed. Um, like I said, from the young age, I was always around basketball, and then I cannot really like recall that I would have said at that point that I want to play here or I want to be at that level. Of course, like as a young kid, you were watching the top leagues, the top players. But to me, it's always been like I just wanted to get better, and since I got better, I got to a better level. Then I was playing. First, I was playing. With the guys who were like same age. Then I was playing with the older guys. Then I got to the men's leagues, and so forth. So it's always been kind of I've just been playing and training, and it just has taken me to places and to better levels.
Do you remember any point that you realized that you can actually be really good at this sport?
Mm, it was probably in when I was in college when there was more like I would say like scouts involved and people started talking about playing basketball professionally. Um, but even then, to me it was still the same kind of basketball that you're just playing and but yeah, I would say that was kind of the time because they started ranking players and seeing who has the shot to go to the NBA and who's going to make it to pro and who's not. So I would say that time.
But before college, you went to high school to play basketball there. How did that happen?
Um, I still remember there was this documentary, Hoop Dreams, and it was like the classic. Um, and there it was a story about these two high school kids whose dream was to go to the college. I don't recall how old I was when that came out, but I would say somewhere around maybe 12 years old, 10, 12 years old maybe. Um, and for ever since, to me, it just seemed like I want to go to the States and play basketball. And then at that time, Hanno Möttölä was in college. He was a big name in basketball at that time in Finland. And there were other, like my teammates, I had a couple of teammates who were a little older than me, and they wanted to go to college. And so it just seemed like something that, felt interesting. Um, and then I was playing in Finland, and there were coaches who helped me to get to the high school. And high school to me was kind of like a stepping stone. I want to see how it is in high school, and do I even like the whole thing, the culture, and the way they play basketball in the States. And it was also one way to get like, more possibilities to get to the college from the high school instead of just staying in Finland. And that was kind of the path I took.
How was it scary to go there because you're still pretty young age and you go overseas by yourself? How did it feel when you stepped on the plane?
Yeah, it kind of even happened like before I stepped on the plane. I remember I was I think it was in having like a layover in Netherlands, and I was like, I need to get something to eat, and I went to Burger King or something like that we didn't have in Finland at that point. And that was like the time when it kind of hit me, like I realized that I'm not going to see my friends. I'm not going to see my family like pretty much for a year or 10 months, And that was probably like the first time when I was homesick and I felt like what am I actually doing here? Um, you know, like you said, I was young at that point, and it was the first time when it wasn't like I would move away from home and being like 30 minutes away from home, just in my own apartment, but actually left to another side of the world. So it was it was a big thing, but I think that kind of shaped who I am today.
How was the start in the team in the school? Were you very welcome when you went there?
Yeah, it was that the whole experience was really really different, and there's a lot of good stories out of the whole year. We The time when I went there was a lot of players from different parts of the States, different parts of the world. Like we lived in one big house, everybody on the campus, the high school campus. The sports was big in that school, and they had this like bigger basketball program they were trying to build there. And there was guys all over the place. There was guys from France, from Israel, and then also the guys different parts from the States. And the guys were very welcoming because it was like the team basically lived together like in one house the whole season, and so we bonded straight from the beginning.
Tell me about high school, because I've heard things about college and it's huge. College basketball is huge, the biggest thing I almost think there is. But how was it in high school? Were there already a lot of spectators watching the games, and how did it go there?
Yeah, it always depended from different high school. Like when I was in college in Valpo, they had a high school team that almost like got the same crowd that we did. So it depended kind of from what high school it was and what kind of program it was and what else they had like around. Was it like a basketball area or was it hockey area? Then depended like what sports people would go see. And so some of the games and against some of the high schools, like you had the same crowd that you would have here in the lower divisions, but then on some of the other games there would be more people watching. So it kind of really depended from the area and the program.
You think it's very good for the athletes' development, especially mental part, that you actually, in younger age, that you are used to bigger crowds?
To me, it's always been I played in crowds where there's 20,000 plus people, and then when there's less crowd. And to me, it's always been like I kind of zone out and I don't even realize how many people there are. I just get into the game, but definitely it helps when you get used to it. It's the same thing when you get to start playing with like on a better level at a younger age when the game is more fast paced. And I think it's the same with the audience, that you get used to the faster pace, and then at the same time when there's more people on the crowd, then you get used to it and it's just normal to you. So sure, it helps, but I would say it's also varies from player to player, from person to person. Somebody might get really excited, other player might get a little freaked out, and the third one might have some other response for that. So it really depends.
You said you zoned out, and as you, I guess you do still. Did you already create sort of methods in young age that you were able to be focused in the game and not think about the other stuff around it?
Um, we had this in a high school, like in the States. We had this thing, and the guys, if they're now watching this from the States that I played with, they're gonna laugh about it. Um, we had this like tradition. We had to do this formation, and the coach had picked it from he had played professionally in China, and he had picked this thing from the Asian culture, and I didn't get it. This thing, like, I didn't understood what it was uh, back then. Um, but the formation thing was basically meditation. We had to do like meditation uh, before every practice, and sometimes if we did something, well, let's say we just got into trouble and we had to do like the formation thing, and it could be for hours. And at that point, it always felt like a punishment. You didn't understand because you didn't really know what the meditation is. You just thought, like, if you meditate, you go somewhere, you sit down, and then you just like sit in a funny position and put the things like
Yeah.
this, and that's the thing. But even though we didn't understood what it was like back then, I think it kind of helped with this thing being present at the moment, and it kind of carried over at the playing as well. So when you said like did I have some kind of methods to be able to just zone out, I guess this was only thing I could say that was kind of method. Other than that, it was just like playing. And when you so into the playing, you don't have really time to do anything else. At least I didn't. So that's kind of like my experience.
After high school, you continued playing in the U.S. You went to, like as you said, Valparaiso in
Yeah.
the university. How was that experience? Of course, it was huge and big, but
Mm.
how was the start?
It was very different from the high school world. Like, everything was bigger. The campus was a lot bigger, more students. The basketball program was way more professional. And a lot of people ask me, like, you played this and this many years professionally, but I would say it's been the same thing already in college. It was as professional as any of the teams that I played professionally. Um, and so it was a step, um, to like bigger courts and in that sense, like bigger things. But the high school kind of prepared me for everything that was coming from the college, because we already had like 3 4 hour practices in high school, and there was more quantity, especially more quantity in training when transferring to the college life and all that. So that was probably the biggest thing that changed, was the there was more training, and but we already did a lot of that in high school, so it wasn't that uh, big of a step or difference. Plus, it was also easier to make that transition since I had already studied 1 year in English, was able to speak and all that. So there was less new things come right at you at the beginning.
And it went well. At least the first year went really well, and you were actually, I think you had the best average points for the whole team
Yeah.
for the first year. And how did it affect you that you were actually so successful the first year? Did it affect you as a player or as a person at all?
No, I don't think so. It was well, of course, everything has some kind of a effect
Yeah.
on you. That's for sure. But to me, once again, like I just went out there and I played, and it didn't matter if I was a freshman. And usually in college sports, the freshmen, um, you know, they have to kind of earn their time, and before the players stayed in college for longer periods of time, so they didn't just play 1 year and went to the NBA. So there was guys who were playing there for 3 years. Now they were their fourth year. So usually you had to earn the first couple of years, like on your spot, your playing minutes and everything. Um, but I felt like I was able to compete. So to me, it didn't matter if I was a freshman or the first year student or not. Um, and to me, it was kind of natural. I didn't even expect that I'm not supposed to do well or I'm not supposed to play this much or do these things I'm doing. So in that sense, it was once again like just a continuation that felt normal to me.
Seems like you were not overthinking the issues, because I've been talking to a lot of athletes here, and it seems that when you're overthinking about the situation and that how this would go in the future, it actually kind of puts you down many times. It doesn't help
Sure,
you at all.
sure, and that's been something that I probably wouldn't say I've been like overthinking that. I like to think, and especially like off the court, there's a lot of things that I want to go through, and sometimes I would feel it's easier not to think so much, just kind of like keep going and not to think about it. Um, but to me, like when I was and still when I'm on the court, it's more of a just playing and not thinking. The biggest thing that I would say that would have benefited me, that's the same thing kind of you said that you've been talking with other athletes about thinking. To me, it's been more of a, like the failures and maybe not during the game like thinking those, but being kind of you could almost say like scared to fail, and especially um, when you've been able to do these things right from the get go, being really good at something and you've been able to do things really well, you know, after that it's even more difficult to kind of fail, because you always been doing things well, and that was kind of like the same thing that my first year in college I was doing really well, and so it was kind of like I have to keep up with this, you know, and it was even more difficult to fail after that, because you didn't want to kind of lose the the things that you had already done or the reputation you had, So maybe not thinking wasn't the issue, but like if I could tell that now to the same guy who was in college, I would say like just like do things and just fail like fail big.
Yeah. Failing is a big thing, and as I was playing ice hockey as a goalie, that was also maybe my biggest fear, also failing, and many times it made me worse. What do you think about that? As a young child, people are raising their kids and they are becoming athletes or whatever in life, and you're making these games and things. And I heard from my dad that I had to win every time, and they let me win. And I'm later now been thinking that maybe that's not the right way to do it. Maybe you should be able to lose as a kid also and learn to deal that
Yeah,
situation. What do you think about that?
no, definitely.
Yeah.
I was a really bad loser when I was younger, you know, uh, um, and and I wish I would have, you know, kind of lost more. And that's the same thing. I don't have kids, so I guess I'm not the right person to kind of give any advice. But I feel it's so important to learn how to lose. Um, and a lot of times you would think you probably do a favor for the kid to let them win. And of course, it cannot be in a way that you just lose every time, and you lose like 50 points, or you're not getting any the feel of being good at anything. That if you play against, let's say, your dad or mom, and they just beat you on everything, like big time, then of course you also need the encouragement that you can do things and you're good at something. But then at the same time, it's important to understand that it's okay to lose, kind of thing, and not even make a big deal out of it that if you lose or if you win, you know. Um, so I think it's very important. All these things come from the young age. So maybe you as well, you and I, both. Maybe it was the thing that was already kind of built in when we were little kids, and it just kind of carried over, later on.
I hear you. I was so rattled every time I lost.
Yeah, it's the
But
same thing.
let's not talk about me.
Yeah,
Let's fly back to college basketball. And first year went really well, and second year started, and you were able to play some games. But then something happened. You became sick.
yeah.
How did it feel that you are actually in a very good zone, and then you just become sick, and you're not able to play and participate the game?
It was tough. I already had when I was younger, around 13, and I had a big injury, as a knee injury. I had three different scopias done on my or surgeries on my knee, and I was out about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And so it wasn't the first time that I had to be out for a longer period of time. But of course, it was different at that point, since the first year you know, was really successful, and then the second year, there was a lot of issues, issues with the health, and in that sense, it was difficult, and especially being abroad, away from your family. So that was difficult, and then it's been the same thing professionally. Always when you're abroad and you're somewhere for the basketball, and people ask, like, how was the year, and how was the experience, how was the country and everything, and it usually always depends how did the basketball go, you know and so if you don't get to play, you have to be on the sidelines, and things are difficult in that sense, then of course, like, it's difficult to enjoy, like, the full experience as well. So it was tough. um, it was tough times, like, in that sense.
Do you have any advices, because you told me that you were almost 2 years out because of the knee surgeries, that you have any advices for the players or the juniors or whatever listening to this, that how can you cope with this situation, that you are able to recover if you just stay
Yeah,
on the game?
be patient, like, that's the biggest thing, like, be patient, and it's not even the kid who has the injury, it's the people around, and it's not even like the parents, it's because, like, my parents were just saying the whole time, like, just do the rehab, and there's no rush. But then there's also, like, coaches involved, around you, and all those things. So I would say, like, everyone who's you know um, around the athlete, just be patient, especially in younger age, there's no rush to anything. Um, and most of the times, like, the injuries, they happen for a reason. So there's always a good time. um, you can always, do something. Like you can train, you can get better even that time. If you don't get to do your own sport, you can still, get better as an athlete, and do a lot of other things too. So it's not like you just, waste the whole time. But I would say just, be patient with the rehab time, and so you're ready to be able to play. Because what kind of happened to me, um, that injury affected, for many years, after it had happened. Of course, there was a lot of things, going on. Um, I grew a lot during that time, and so it wasn't just like the injury, but that was like the main thing that that it still had effect later on. So you might think that, okay, I'm gonna get to the court like real super fast, and then I'm not gonna, like, waste time. But it can come kind of like hunt you, you know years after, and then you're gonna be sidelined again. So that's the main thing.
Would you think that we can all learn from failures? You think this is in the same box sort of thing, that we get injured, that we can also learn from that, as you said, that we can grow as an athlete or as a person during that time and develop ourselves to be a better persons and athletes.
Right, and it just kind of gives you like a different view, for the things. And even the word is like a failure. I don't know if it's even like a good one, in that sense. Because like when you get an injury, or you're not able to do something the way you would want to do, so basically you fail on that one. Like you wanted to shoot the ball, or kick the ball, and get the goal, but sometimes, you miss it, and then like you failed. But more so, it would be more important to see the things that, I can improve on, instead of, I failed, I'm bad at this. Kind of see it that, I wasn't able to do this, but I'm able to do this. What can I add to it, and what do I need to do that I can be even better?
What is your opinion? I think, in my opinion, is that it's affecting a lot of people, that they are just thinking what the other people are thinking. So
Definitely.
would this be a very good skill to learn from already from young age, that you actually need to focus on yourself more? Of course, the people
Mm.
around and the people we know, but not to think about so much what the other people expect from you.
Yeah, and definitely the opinions. Like you need to, of course, care about other people, but not their opinions. And that's the thing. Like, why are we worried about the failure? Well, it's the fear that how I'm gonna look for the other people, right?
Yes.
And then when you really look at the fear, what it is and where it comes from, it's almost like so what, you know? Most of the times, the fears we have, like the fear with the failure, or the fear what other people think, it's almost like laughable, that it comes to the point that it's not like there's a lion or bear chasing me, and I'm, losing my life, and or I'm at the war, and it can be one mistake, one failure, and I'm dead. But even, and once again, I'm glad I don't have experience, that rough in my life. But even then, I would think that the less you think about the fear, of course, it's difficult not to, but the less you're able to focus on the things you do and the good things, then you'll be able to, be more successful what you do. So even if the fear is there, it doesn't help to think about it. And this is easy to say, that's what a lot of coaches always tell the players, like, don't think about it. But then, that's going to be the time when you actually really start to think about it. So it's not that easy, and I get that. But then at the same time, to me, it's been easier, to think about the whole thing, that what is it that you really feared of, like what is the thing that you're fearing so much, um, and at that point you can understand that it's really nothing, the thing that you're so scared of, that you know, it's someone's opinion, and there's always going to be opinions, no matter how much you know, put your effort on it. So yeah, once again, big topic that that would benefit a whole lot of people, not just the young ones, but people at all ages, to just focus on yourself and not to worry about what other people think think of you, in that sense.
Have you seen culture difference in this subject, or is
Um,
it more individual thing?
I would say it's more of the individual. Of course, cultures are in that sense, but human being is still human being. Like in and it's not something that because it is something that it's instinctive and it's natural for human beings. So it's not, once again, like if you have that fear or if you think about what other people think, this is not the time to say like, you're doing bad or there's something wrong with you. But it's more of a just to understand the patterns and what's going on, what can I do about it, and is it like that important that I need to put this much time and energy on it.
How big of a role has the coach in this matter? If you think about more, even more also in the grown up and the professional athleticism, but also maybe more also for the young kids. What do you think? How big is the role for the coach?
Yeah, it's a huge role. I've always, well, not always, because earlier on, basketball defined me a whole lot. Like if depended how the games were going, then I felt great or I felt terrible. In that sense. Um, but basketball, it's more of a like a tool to improve yourself, and it can be anything. To you, it's been hockey. To me, it's been basketball. Other players can be something else. But since we think it that way, the coach is the one that is like the leader of the pack and the leader of the team, and the leader for that young person or the older person. It doesn't really make a difference in that sense. And so the people who are in charge and who are the leaders, I think they have a big responsibility. So it doesn't matter if it's a coach in basketball or if it's like a CEO at the business. It's the same thing. The way you treat people, the kind of example you give, it's a big thing. And you have your friends, you have your family, but there's a certain number of people that are in your life, and I think all those people really affect. And if you think about a coach, the coach, you might see him every day or her, and so there has to be a huge impact.
Could there be more room for right kind of mental coaching in sports and also in normal life? What do you think?
For sure, for sure. It's kind of a taboo, like I would say, in Finland, in a sense that if you talk about like mental things or mental problems, even before they occur, it seems like you're weak or it's like a weakness, and maybe that maybe the failure comes in at that point as well. That if you need to talk about things or if you need to do something about these things, then maybe like you kind of like fail, then maybe there's like something wrong with you that you need to talk about, like the mental health or the mental things. But it's the same thing as in like that the physiotherapy is doing in sports, is that maybe it would be a good idea to tackle the problems before they occur. So the things you do in, let's say, warm-ups for the body, and try to like bulletproof yourself that you don't get injured. The same things you could do, like we were doing in high school, the formation that seemed like the dumbest thing ever because we didn't understand the why behind it. And I think that was the biggest thing that they never explained to us, why we're doing this. We didn't have the understanding. And so the same thing if you're doing for your body, like, hey, maybe you could do it for your mind as well, part of the warm up already, or before that, or after practice. But I think it should be part of the whole thing, with the body, with the skills, with the mind. That's like the first thing that has to be there, that you can do the other things in your sports and in life.
Back to college, and you got sick and you had some tough times, but you also broke a record there. You actually threw 10 3-pointers in one game, and I think it still holds in that college. How did that feel? You told me already, but you didn't really think about those records or anything. But how do you feel now about it?
Now I feel good. I could say I'm repeating myself, but it was the same thing.
Yeah.
And I guess that was the time when I can really say that must have been like the flow feeling, or the zone. I remember, like, in a game, I hit maybe like 2 out of 4 in the beginning out of the 3-pointers. And so it wasn't anything like spectacular in the beginning, but then it just kind of kept going and going, and I just kept hitting, and I didn't miss. I didn't know about the record at the time, and I didn't even understood during the game that there was this record, and it's something that, and it was the school record, and our assistant coach, he was the assistant coach at the time, and he was holding the record,
Okay.
and it was actually the situation where his father was our head coach, and the son was the assistant coach, and the guys were like kidding afterwards that we were thinking that maybe they get you out when you had the 9, so you don't get the 10th, because his record was like 9. But to them that wasn't the thing. They were so proud of it, and it wasn't just like of course, like, my name is on the record, but I needed the whole team and the teammates and the coaching staff and everything that it happened. But even like during the game, I wasn't aware of it, so I didn't know what's going on. I just kept playing, and at one point they started to like chant my name, and my friends who were at the game, they asked me like, "How did that feel?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I didn't even realize that like the whole crowd, they were like chanting my name. I was just like that much into the zone. I guess that's what it probably was, because I didn't realize what's going on around me. I just felt like wherever I pull it up, it's kind of gonna go in. And the funny thing about it is, because it was so, and this is the mental part, even the next day, like, I made these threes, and it's a lot of 3-pointers in basketball in one game. And the next day I went to shoot, because we had a game like 2 days after or so we had to practice the next day. And then I went to shoot the next day, and I still felt like, I'm just making every shot. And I kind of did, but I just felt like, it's just going to go in no matter how, or what the technique is, or how I'm going to shoot, it's going to go in. And so, and there's no like good way to explain it other than that. It's just like a mental thing in that sense. Of course, the way you feel in your body, do you have energy, all those things of course matter. When you're tired, it's difficult to shoot as well, but the mental part was big.
I think it is something unexplainable when it happens. That I don't know if anybody can really still explain it. What happens when you are really like you said, in the zone, and everything just works out well, and you don't think about it and you don't realize anything. It just goes well.
Exactly, and you just remember kind of glimpses here and there, but it's kind of like, it's even hard to like recall what was going on, You just kind of like, wake up from something, and there it is. Like there's the result.
Have you had the experience the same thing that when you did very good and people are coming like, ah, you were awesome and you did a so good game and you were just shooting everything in it and you kind of don't even feel good about it. I've had that experience that
Yeah,
somebody calls me, oh, you won, you made a shutout, you didn't let any goals in. I'm like, yeah, okay.
yeah,
You're kind of still in that zone, I guess. Then.
and maybe that's part of the. A lot of times, I don't know how you were, but when you have the fear of failure, then a lot of times you're a perfectionist in a lot of ways. So you always chase for the perfect game, and it never comes. Kind of, it's really difficult to play in that sense, like a perfect game. There's always something that 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 is not perfect, and I guess that's part of this that I've had a lot of times, and now even when I look back, I'm like, hey, that was actually a good game. But at that point, it felt like I could have done better, and I could have made that shot, and it would have been perfect if I would have made that, or it would have been like a really good game. What they were talking about, if I would have done this and this and stopped that player, and get that steal, or so, you know, um, it's it's I guess it's the mentality there once again.
I guess it is.
Yeah.
It is. Usually you play 4 years in college, but you made a different choice. You had an opportunity to start to play as a professional, and you actually signed to Italy. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Um, that was once again it was like it was an experience that it's easier to look back and see what was going on instead of like at that moment. I had an opportunity to go pro, and usually, like you said, it's 4 years in college. I had, despite the sicknesses and the problems like in the second year, I had like a good 2 years behind me, and I had the promising third year coming up, and I was still kind of like in the middle of the college career, and everything was still possible. But then I had this possibility to go pro, and uh, at that point, I felt like okay, like this is an okay offer, and now I realize like it was a great offer, like in that sense that you get 3 years in a first league, Italy. That's one of the top at that point. It was one of the top leagues in Europe. The team was a Euro Cup team that was playing against other top teams in Europe as well. Um, and it was a great because I was still young, around 20. So it was a great possibility to get to be somewhere, play 3 years, and get better, and kind of get your the foundation for your whole career, starting from there. Um, but like a lot of times in life, things don't go the way you plan, and so it was a tough blow, um, and and for sure, like the career has been different, what it could have been, but that's always like the what if and so on.
So the whole season actually didn't even start. There were
Yeah,
some problems with the Italian team. Can you explain me what happened? Or
yeah,
maybe you don't even know. Or you,
yeah. The whole thing. I was with the national team, and I broke my finger in a national team game, and so I went there just like a couple of weeks after the preseason started. But then I was able to do the whole preseason, and it lasted for like maybe 6 weeks. And the week that we were supposed to play, I think it was like a Saturday or Sunday, probably Sunday, because because it was early in the week and we were supposed to play the first game of the year and of the season that weekend. And I still remember that I was going to the gym, and everybody's like outside this gym. I was in Sicily, so it was hot still at that point, and people were just hanging out. And they're like, "Did you hear?" And there was one player who had the same agent I did, and he came to see it, like to tell me that, hey, I talked to our agent, and it's real. And I'm like, what's real? And they said that they've taken the license away from the team to compete in the Italian league. And I had to do something with, this is the official explanation, this is all I know, that it had to do with some taxation money that they were supposed to pay the year before, or the last season, and they didn't do it. Or then they did it like too late, because they said they paid it after some due date or whatever. And so the league just decided that this team is not going to play in this league. And we still could have competed in the Euro Cup, but you only have like 8 games in the Euro Cup, so players didn't want to stay there and just play for that 8 games, and that would be kind of short season. So we did all this preseason, played all these games and did all this training, and then suddenly it was like everybody can just try to find a new job. And that was like my first experience for the professional basketball. So it was kind of rough one.
How did you react after that? After those news?
Yeah, of course, the first things were like, I left with this, and since I was a professional, I can go back to college, and it would have been easier. I would have just said, okay, I just go back to college since, this thing happened. But I wasn't eligible for that anymore. And it was tough, but then at the same time, I didn't know kind of anything else, because that was like my first experience as a pro player. So I was like, okay, maybe this is that's something that kind of happens. So things gonna work out and all this, and they're just gonna find another team real quick, and we just go to another team, and like no big deal. But obviously that wasn't the case, and it was difficult to find another team in the middle of the season, because the seasons had already started, and so it just showed like the side of the basketball, and not just in basketball, I would say in professional sports altogether, that's not the glorious and kind of the things that normal, or the people who don't play sports professionally, that they don't see.
But then you found a place in France. It was a lower level.
Yeah.
What did you think about that time, that, I'm going to a lower level, where you're just happy to find a place to play?
Yeah, I was happy to find a place. It wasn't now afterwards, and I didn't have any experience on these things. But now later on, that wasn't the smartest move. I just trusted on my agent and what we're gonna do. And so yeah, I packed my bags and went to France and played there for the season. I was happy to play, and compete, and I didn't feel like that's gonna take anything away from me. I just need to play well, and then I'm gonna be back in Italy or somewhere else, later on. So once again, like, I was just playing and focusing on the things that I can focus on.
Especially the first year as a professional, it's good that actually you mentioned about the agent, and people not involved in professional sports.
Mm.
I don't think they realize that how big of a role the agent really has in the sport. And this is my opinion as a player, because you have to trust somebody, so you trust your agent that they can actually make a big difference.
Yeah.
What do you think about the agents? Do they have any right to choose for you that where you go, or you think they just try to do their best job?
Um, it kind of goes like, both ways, or I would say like different ways. There's different kind of agents, like there's different kind of people, but especially like at that point when I was a young player, getting to the first year of the professional life and kind of like building my resume. That's important, like in any work life. um, there should have been different decisions made, like in that sense. But I didn't have any experience, so I trusted my agent to do those things. And I'm not saying it's his fault by any means, but then at the same time, uh, they have a lot of influence on things. Of course, the player plays, and I feel like I've been there where I've been supposed to kind of be, but the road could have been, easier in that sense with the different choices. And like you said about the agents, there's a lot of good ones, like the one I'm working right now and been working for the past years. He's one of the top ones. But then at the same time, there's I've experienced different kind of agents, and there's always the mix of, because the agent's supposed to work for you, but then at the same time he needs to be able to get multiple players in a different teams, so he kind of has to work for the teams as well, like in that sense that he has to be in good terms with the teams, but he has to be, he should be good terms and think the best of the player. But there could be situations that, um, there's something that doesn't go align with uh, the benefits of the player, but the agent is not really going to do anything about it because he doesn't want to step on the toes of the general managers or the teams or whatever, like whatever is the case. So it's kind of like he has to take care of that. He gets, the most money possible, but then at the same time, it's not always maybe the best situation for the athlete. So there's a lot of like integrity and the loyalty, trust, these kind of things, that are on the stake. But definitely, like in any business, like sports is at that level, it's a business. There's there's different kind of people and different kind of agents.
It feels like there's not humanity involved a lot in sports. There is, but as you said, we are really players are really just sort of a tools for the teams at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a price tag for kind of everything, and in professional sports, it's more of a just the business side, not so much. Of course, there's different organizations and teams and clubs who do things, different in both ways, like really well and then not so well. So it really depends in that sense. But I would say the average is it's raw business. Like in that sense, it's a rough world.
After that experience in France, your career continued in Finland, and you were actually the rookie of the year in Finland the next season. So you actually were just playing in a high level, even though you had these difficulties. So is it just you, or I've been now talking to you, and I hear things like you didn't really think about the situations that much, and that you just went with the flow. And is this the reason also that you were able to play in the top level, even though you had these difficulties?
Yeah, that could be it. Um, you know, then at the same time, um, maybe it's even me. It's difficult to answer. Like, what was
Yeah.
the real thing in that? What was, because there's so many things involved, and even like with the case in Italy, like I said, there's so many things involved. If that would have happened this way, or this would have happened that way, the outcome could have been totally different. And it's the same thing. Like when I came to Finland, I came to a really good team for Topo, and it was a good team. It was easy to play there well. So there's just so many things that you know um, that that affect on the outcome. So, but even after those things, I would say at that point I didn't think it was that big of a deal that the team basically they didn't bankrupt, but had to give away the league license. Uh, so when I think about it now, I can understand and I can see that it was a huge thing. But at that point, I didn't really think much of a like big deal in that sense. I thought it was kind of normal. But there's no way that's by any means like a normal thing to happen, even in professional sports, even though teams come and go. But still, so maybe that was something that kind of helped me to continue. That I didn't understand like the magnitude of the situation, and I just kept playing.
Well, situations lead to another, and then you flew to Spain. How was the Spanish league compared to, let's say, compared to Finland? You first played in Finland, then you went to Spain, and you played in the US before that, and some exhibition games in Italy. And are there any like culture differences in the sport, or is the sport the same even though you are playing in a different country?
The I've been in a different countries where being a different language. A lot of times the language, like in Spain or in France, that I didn't have any knowledge and I didn't speak those languages at all when I got there. But the basketball was still kind of the language that was the same. So I was just able to go to the court and play. But even then, there's like a different accents, I guess you could say, And in Spain, the the rosters were different. Like the tall or the big players were really big, and then the guards were just a lot smaller. So things like the way you screen people, the situations that come out of these tactical nuances like screening are a lot different when the players are different sizes. Because like in Finland, the players were pretty much around the same height, the same size, no matter kind of what the position. So you could just like do different kind of tactics against, let's say, like the screening. So the game kind of changed in that sense. Plus there were other things as well. Like in Spain, the players were used to that. You just press the other guy full court, whereas in Finland or in France, you start that like after the half court. So little things like that. But other than that, when people always been asking me like, what's the difference between this league or that league, or you played against the top players in the world and top players in Europe in European championships, like what's the difference? And to me it's always been like the pace, how the things happen, and the other thing is like if in a lower league you have 4 or 5 really good guys, then on the top league there's like the entire team, there's 12 guys that could be starting. So those are like the differences, that the good player could play all of these leagues, but then you have the same quality all the way through.
How about you? Have you been able to step in a different country and culture easily, or has there been some difficulties?
Yeah, at first, the first things were always like, where's the supermarket so you can get the food, how you can make laundry. So like just to get the everyday life going, and that's always been like the main things. How do I get to the gym, that we practice? And once you get kind of like those things going, then it's a lot easier. And then little by little, depends how well your teammates speak English and if the coach is speaking English or not, and but little by little, then you kind of get into the rhythm.
I spoke with the ice hockey goalie Niklas Backstrom, and he told me that he was always thinking that he's a guest in the culture. So you think this is a good idea to understand it the way that when you go to a different country and a different culture, just respect it and be a guest there and don't try to make it your own country.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because there's going to be a lot of things like I remember in France, when every day, like when we met each other, we were supposed to give a handshake. Like instead of like Finland, you just say hi.
Yeah.
There you're supposed to go and like give a handshake, and if it's a female, you give 2 kisses. And to a Finnish guy, it's like something like very different. And there were occasions like when we did the physical training and the lifting in a local gym, and so it could be like I'm doing like sets of squat or bench pressing, and a guy comes and stands next to me. As long as he have to wait, that he can just give me a handshake, just to kind of acknowledge you're there. And there were times when I'm like, having a bad day or something, and like I don't feel like talking to anyone right now, and then there's still all these random people that want to come give kisses to you or want to give handshakes. And I think what Backstrom was saying, this is probably like the good time to understand that you're the guest, and just try to see the good things out of it. And especially for the culture thing, just try different things and go along. You can always go back to what feels good to you, if that's not what you feel like it's part of you, or if makes you really uncomfortable. But that's a good way to put it.
Well, different cultures you've seen. You also played in Argentina.
Yeah.
Well, that's totally a different continent again. Was it totally different, or as we spoke already, maybe I'm repeating myself that basketball is the real language, but how was it in South America? Was it the real different culture? I've never been there myself.
Yeah. There were times when I felt like, since I had the experience from Spain, that maybe I could be in Spain, because the language is similar. It's not the same. There's a lot of, to me, I understood and spoke a little bit of Spanish, but in Argentina it was very tough, like because it sounds the same, but it's different. And that culture was very different. So you felt like, oh, maybe this could be like Spain, but then after 5 minutes you're like, no, I'm definitely somewhere like really far away. And for mine, it's difficult to understand because in Finland you step into this tube that it's airplane, and then you fly this whatever, like 15-20 hours, and then you come out and you're just on the other side of the world, where like everything, even the water runs the other
Oh, yeah.
other way. And so all these things are different, and it's very different from Europe, and the style of play is different, but it was a great experience just to kind of see and understand the things that that you can appreciate in your own culture, and the things that are well here.
Has there been any real culture shock anywhere that you really needed to swallow a bit to understand it?
I guess the one in France, that wasn't, I wouldn't say like a shock, but that was like a big difference in that sense. And then I'm a lot of times running to a lot of places like at the last minute, but in these southern countries it was more of like a habit, that like in France we were going to the airport to leave for the game, and we were supposed to leave like 10:30, and I was there like 10:20, so ready to go. and the other guys just started to show up like 10:40, 10:45, and after we did that like enough times, I realized that I don't have to be there before 10:30, and I could be even like 10:35. But little differences like that, and maybe now it's maybe that's the reason why I'm always running at the last minute, because that's something I brought with me here, and those are the little things. And then at the same time, since I've been many years abroad, there's probably things that I don't even think of it that are like very different, because I'm so used to it. Like my friends always laugh about it when, after coming from the States, I always said that I need to go on and do laundry. And here in Finland, it's like wash laundry, So they were like, "Are you gonna what are you gonna go do? Like, you're gonna go like mess up your clothes, or what are you gonna go do when you like doing laundry?" So you start to use like different ways to say things and different kind of phrases and things like this. But it kind of comes automatic when you're living abroad.
You think when you've been living in so many different countries, it helps you out nowadays to understand the different situations, that people might do different things and react in a different way for different matters?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I picked from these things is the fact that it's not just like black and white. That there's different shades of gray, and even like beyond. That it's not only this is the only way to do it, and there's nothing else. And even if you feel like this is the way to do it, you can understand that there's totally reasonable explanations why other people are doing it a different way. And so it's giving me perspective, and not to judge based on things you and other people do. And it's the very difficult thing to step on other person's shoes. But I think seeing different cultures and the way things work, it has helped me on this aspect a lot.
We have these Finnish flags here hanging, like I said, to Matti Surhamari also. You have played in the national team also. Can you remember the first time you put on the Finnish jersey? How did it feel?
Yeah, I had experiences on a youth national teams, and at that moment or that point of time, it wasn't that big of a deal. And but I remember the first time when I think I was 18, somewhere like 17, 18, and I went to the first national team camp of the men's national team, and played the first national team game of the men's team, and that was way different from the youth games, kind of. That there was that was something that's more extraordinary. That there's not that many people who get to do this and represent. The national team being part of my basketball career, like from the beginning, kind of like from the early years. So it's been part of the summers, and that's like kind of like what you do there as well. But then at the European Championships, when the kind of like the whole the Wolfpack thing started, and there was a lot of fans at the games. That was again a special moment, to be able to represent a larger community and in a society. And that's how I've always felt, that when you play, it's more about you and now when being coaching and helping athletes, it's about them. But I would say national team is the place where it's more about everyone else than you, and then you have a common goal. And I wish that kind of mindset would go more on the club teams and professional teams. But it's difficult because the players are changing like every year. The teams are with the different rosters every year, and it's difficult to kind of build the community, where only the wins matter, not the stats or who gets how much money or where you're gonna play next year, but more of so that you have a common goal, and it's just to beat the other team, and we just do the best possible way that's out there, and that's something that would be nice to get more of the professional teams as well.
When you're playing for the whole nation, the whole country, does it give you more pressure or less pressure, or how does it affect you?
You would think that it's more pressure, but then at the same time, especially those games when there were more people watching, and we were abroad, and I know when I've been abroad that it's always like you kind of feel that you're there alone because you're in a different culture, and like Baxton said, you're a guest, so it doesn't feel like home in that sense. But when there's a lot of people behind you, and like the whole, like you said, the nation's kind of like behind the team, I would feel like it's less pressure, even though there's a lot of demanding fans out there that you need to win the games. I would still feel that it's more supportive, and maybe it's even easier to perform, uh, when there's more people kind of backing you up in those situations.
That's very interesting to know, because outside that national team box, you would
Mm.
think that there's way more pressure because the whole nation is watching you and how you are going to be successful, and there's more press writing things about you and things like this. But it's good to know that it's actually supportive
Yeah,
more
yeah,
than giving you more pressure.
yeah,
Now we're in the present and you are still playing.
yeah.
And in the first league in the top level in Finland, you've been playing a long time already. What keeps you actually in the game?
It's and this is something that I like the recent years I've had to really think about. What is the reason to play? And like I said earlier, that it was the thing that I just kind of kept going and going, and just from one level to another. And I realized it's the thing that the like the motivating kind of force behind it is the thing that I just want to see how good I can get at this specific thing. Right now it's basketball, and if I would feel like I cannot get any better, and it's difficult to improve, then that's probably the time when I stop playing. Um, but that's the thing that kind of drives me, and even sometimes forces me to do things and keep training and keep playing.
What about nowadays? Because you've been playing so many years already. Has it changed you? Do you enjoy more the game? Are you able to enjoy more the game than you were before, when you were just, or was it always the same? It's enjoyable to be on the court.
Yeah, I've always maybe I'm a little different in this one, but I've always loved to practice, and even sometimes, like even when I was younger, I didn't even like to play.
Okay.
Like to me, it's always like, and maybe it has to do with the failure thing,
Yeah.
because in practice you just get to do and try things and nobody cares. In games, like the things, it's kind of like on the line, and you need to make the shot, and it's recorded. Did it go in or not? And so in that sense, I've always loved to practice, and even when there's going to be time that I don't play anymore, I'm not going to go, well, you know, never say never, but I don't feel I would have the need to go and play to some other team, you know, on the lower divisions. But I'm sure I'm still going to be the older guy who's going to be outside, you know, hooping and training and you know, putting shots up, because that's still like the part that I really enjoy.
How important do you think practicing that in the ground level skills is to be able to be a top player?
You mean like
The basic, handling the ball and shooting it, and so a lot of practicing to be able to be in the games also.
Yeah, and that's the the foundation. I feel you can create the foundation like rather quick, even though like basketball is not one of like the easiest sports. Everybody knows when they've been trying to or forced to play that, like during the PE classes at that school. It's, you know, it's more difficult to get the game going than, let's say, in soccer, where you kick the ball. But the main thing, what we were talking early on, was like that you need to have the foundation for the motor skills and just to be able to move your body, and be able to control the ball and do all these things. And if you have this, like the basics on how to move, how to jump, run, you know, cut, and handle different kind of elements like you know, basketball, then I think it's gonna be way easier to learn the actual, you know, details of basketball techniques and all those things. So all of that comes from, you know, from the very young age. So it doesn't even mean that you would have to play basketball from the young age, as long as you know, develop skills to move and be able to, you know, control your body.
You're coaching nowadays also, and you have this Saha company. Tell me about Saha.
Yeah, Saha. We founded Saha with a friend of mine, Harri Yrttiaho, and Harri was a coach in Joensuu when I played there. It's about, I would say, maybe 6-7 years ago. And I went to Joensuu. Harri was there. He was the strength coach there, and we didn't know each other. But right from the start, it was, you know, it was easy to talk to him, and it just kind of like clicked, and we became friends during that time that I was in Joensuu. It was during like a 3-month span, and we stayed in touch after that. I went to play different teams, and Harri was there, and then he moved on to hockey later on. But we stayed friends, and we talked about sports and training, and we were both passionate about training and doing things better. Then one summer we felt like, okay, maybe we have this camp that we should, you know, try to help our athletes and do something about this training that we always talked about. And we wanted to do the camp different because we felt like there's a lot of camps that you know, organize 4 or 5 days of different events, but how much the players are really learning during those days. And so we had this thing that you had to make an application for the camp, so we didn't just take, you know, anybody at the camp, that you actually had to apply for it. And there was a lot less athletes. I think we had like maybe 20 athletes instead of like 100 kids. And it was also for the older athletes, you know, it wasn't just the little young ones, you know, 7 to 12 years old, but it was all the way up to like the the oldest juniors who can still compete in the junior leagues. And we're thinking like, okay, we're doing something different here, you know. But then even after that camp, we felt like, this is not enough. Like we're not able to give to the athletes more and more what we kind of wanted to. We felt like, we can give more. And then after that camp, there was different athletes who came, and it was already before that with Harry, that there were athletes who were asking for help that weren't playing for, the teams that we were involved. But we're asking for help, with the physical training or to me with the basketball training. And so it was 2013 when we really started to talk about like, hey, maybe we should start like a new movement on this, different kind of training. And then the next year, 2014, we founded Saha, and we started working through the Saha company.
What is so different in Saha? If you think about the other, you said, okay, there are some 5-day camps or whatever, but there's something else that there is involved.
Yeah. The thing is, we have athletes from all different sports. Right now, the majority is from ice hockey and basketball because that's been where our history is, and we've been working with basketball and ice hockey teams and players. But there's also athletes from individual sports and not just the team sports. But I guess the biggest thing, what makes us different and different from the majority of the other kind of services or the club teams, is the body, mind, and the skill, and the combination of those. So we help the athletes and focus on them individually, but comprehensively. So a lot of times the teams don't have time for the athletes to focus on their individual needs. Or maybe the athletes, at least that's the feedback we've been getting, and that's kind of like the thing that we've experienced during our playing times, is that sometimes the individuals are left alone because there's so many, athletes in the same team or in the same project. Even if it's like an individual athlete, there's a bigger project going on, and the coaching and the personnel around the athlete, they just don't have enough time to actually, get into the athlete and what's going on and what do they really need. And so I would say the thing with us is the combination of all the things that matter, how good of results you're able to get and give out on the court or playing field.
Sounds like real individual coaching. I like that.
Yeah, and that's the way like we started, even with the camp, that it was 20 instead of 100 kids. It's still the same thing, that we try to keep the groups small. A lot of times there's only like the athlete and the coach, and it's very, like I said, individual focused training. Like, what do you need, and what are the things that what are the steps you need to take to get to the level where you want to go, and what's keeping you from getting there, and kind of figuring out this thing together, that the athlete don't have to be with the thing just on their own, that they have help, and that's what it's really about, just helping athlete. And that's where it all kind of started. There was the demand that these athletes had different kind of issues, and we were able to help them. So that's where it kind of
What about you as a coach? Does it give you fulfillment if you're really able to help the person also? Not only the athlete and the sport, but also the person itself to be a better athlete, and also develop him or her as a person also.
Yeah, a lot of athletes, and that's what I've heard from the athletes that finish with their careers. They're saying it's difficult to find the same kind of excitement or the feelings that you get in the sports. But I would say it's very close in coaching thing, um, or or helping the other athletes. That when somebody's able to, reach that goal or get to the level where they want to go, or even just like a tiny little, technical detail that you've been working on, and the athlete gets success. That's the thing that at least gets me to help these athletes and to coach them, and that's kind of the, the motivation that you want to do good for others, but people are always selfish, like in that in that sense. And I guess that's my selfish thing, is that I hunger for this enjoyment that I get when I'm able to help other people.
Yeah. Has it been difficult now to combine two professions, basketball and coaching?
Yeah, there's times when I feel like um, it would be fun to do only this, or only playing, or only coaching, but then at the same time, um, I feel that I get, since I've been coaching, I've been understanding a lot of the things that's going on, like in the playing, that I've been able to, like, develop myself as a player when I understand these things through coaching. So it has helped me to be a better basketball player, better athlete, and then at the same time, when I'm able to do those things as a player, it's easier to teach those things and kind of um, understand what it feels like from the athlete's point of view. But sure, there's situations when it would be fun to just like look at the game film and the game tape, and go that through on and on, instead of doing some office work that you need to do for the coaching. So you just have to. The time management is different now, because you're not able to, instead of looking the game tape, like the time that you have off from practice, you can't do it the whole day. You have these other things you need to get done.
You already said about the Saha that you are helping older guys also, and I saw like Hannu Toivonen, also one of your clients, and he's an older goalie.
Yeah.
Also, so you're able to help also the older athletes, professional athletes, during their career, still to go further, right?
Yeah, that's something that's been part of our stories, mine and Harry as well, that we were getting better and developing ourselves at the older age. In in athletes, when you're looking at athletes' careers and in that time span, and so we feel of course, there's certain things that happen to our bodies when we get older, but there's so many things that you can affect and do, um, and we feel there's a lot of, like, I was told when I was maybe like 22, that from this point on you can't really like get better that much, like from this point on you just, and this was one of the top like national team coaches. He was saying, like, from this point on you just kind of like keep playing and just like do your thing, like you get experience, but that's the only thing that's going to take you further. And these are the limits that the mind and the society kind of puts on us, and this is something that we also want to fight against and show that it's very possible to get better, through your whole life in different things. Those are probably different things you're going to get better at, but you can get better. It's not said that when you're 30 years of age that you cannot, beat your own, like a sprinting time for the 20 meter dash or something like that. It's a lot of times the things you do, or the things that people say, it's difficult for older age to learn like a new language, or or switch some of the techniques you have in your sports. And sure, it's always difficult because we get all this baggage on our mind that it's going to be difficult to do these things. But I think that's the biggest difference, and it's very doable. And that's like a one challenge that, like, through Hannu and these other like older guys, it's been amazing to see that you're still able to do these things if you just put in the right work and the effort.
We have great examples in the world already that they are like so-called, like you said, older guys, but over 40-year-old, and they still play in the highest level in their sport. I think people have understand it, those players specific. That I think this is a very good goal that you are doing.
Yeah.
To bring this understanding. It's wonderful to have you here.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to share these experiences. You have a lot of knowledge, and I think you are in a very good path with your Saha and still as a player and still developing yourself. You're not an old guy. Somebody might say an old player, but you're not an old guy at all. I always like to ask here for at least one more question, the last question, and I think life is also about enjoying yourself. So what is for you? What makes you happy every day, let's say?
At this moment, for sure, it's like this improvement thing. I've been doing this for a long time through basketball, now coaching, but it's the same thing on everything. Like, a lot of times I can just zone out or something because I just get like, I could get into something, no matter if it's cooking, or if it's some other new aspect, swimming, or if it's something that has some technical things, renovating, places or whatever it could be. And this is like kind of the fire and passion that I think I'm going to have for the rest of my life. That, if there's a subject that I get into, I really want to like know more of it and get good at it. And sometimes it's difficult with the time management, like I said, because I can really zone out and forget everything else and just, try to get good at this. But this is the kind of thing that brings me, happiness. So no matter if it's reading books or going out for a jog or cooking at home, I always kind of want to do it in a better way. Like Muhammad Ali said about, like, if he would be like a garbage man, he would be the best garbage man in the world. So it's the kind of same thing that I'm not good at multitasking, and this is what at home I sometimes get the bad word. But then at the same time, like, if I do like, especially abroad when you have to do like dishes, then like I'm doing the dishes, and I'm even trying to think like, how could you do it this like faster, more efficient, a better way. So I don't have a one thing that I would say like, fishing is the thing that I like to do and I want to do in my spare time. But I would say it's different things, but no matter what it is, I just try to find the ways to improve on that thing. And this way I also think this cannot be taken away from me, because it could be that someday I'm not playing basketball, but with this mindset I'm always able to be happy or find the happiness, like you said, that there's always something, different things you can do, and you don't have to grab on something and fear for losing this thing, and it's gonna like define you, and then if you're not gonna be able to do this thing, or then you're gonna feel like you're not gonna be happy. So
this is a beautiful ideology. I love it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people you see that they look so depressed and when you talk to people, they said, "Oh, I'm just waiting for the holidays at work," and it kind of feels like they don't have any passion in life. Maybe I'm wrong, but at the moment, but if you would be able to make the things like you do, as you say, so you would for sure enjoy the moments, the small moments yourself, that you can actually make yourself worth living and do these things and develop yourself. So it brings a happiness in the face. I love this.
Yeah, and a lot of times it feels like people say like small things, but what are kind of like small or big things, or smaller and bigger things, in that sense? It's kind of like what you make out of it, and what kind of importance that has, to you. So and even if it's the training or the coaching or whatever it is, those little things, add up, and then it's a bigger thing. So it's not like you should only do like, big things, or it's more of the mindset, like, once again.
Thank you, Samuel.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for coming.
Thank you.